All right, welcome everybody to Divided We Stand. This is a live broadcast on YouTube and on Facebook. This is the first time that we have gone on live on both platforms. It's not the easiest thing to do. So whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, you will be able to comment, you will be able to have some type of input, and we will be able to post them live. So again, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, feel free to pose questions, make comments, and Dave and I will eventually get to some of them. So tonight is our real inaugural show because we are on both platforms. And Divided We Stand basically is a channel that is saying, hey, look, things have gotten so bad that we know the Republicans aren't going to give in, the conservatives aren't going to give in, and we're in for some hell. And tonight's guest, and basically our co-host, David Price, is with us. He is a writer, he has been an educator, a musician, and he's worked on a whole host of things. He's a real generalist, and it's great to have him here, and he'll be on our show every Tuesday night. So Dave, welcome.
Well, thank you, Brian. Now, wait a minute here. You're the host, and you do all the work, but you elevated me tonight to co-host? Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, that's a promotion. That's really very cool. Hey, everyone out there. You know what, Brian? Let's get this thing started, okay? They know enough about us.
Right.
And let's just go. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, 3 years ago, Dave, when Trump was running for president, we called each other, and we spoke about what possibly could happen under the Trump administration, and neither of us knew how bad this was going to get. But me being the gloomer and the doomer much more than you, I felt this thing was just going to hell, basically. And I think in the beginning you had some hopes that perhaps there would be some checks and balances. I think nothing more than, I say, 2 or 3 weeks ago in a discussion with you, you said, this is one of the first times in my life where I can look at the future and say, I really don't know if we're going to get out of this thing. And this is something different from you, something I've never ever seen, because you do have a bit of optimism. Perhaps you'd like to explain to our
well, yes. Certainly. I mean, there's a difference between Pollyanna, rose-colored glasses, I don't see anything wrong, and optimism. And I do like to think of myself. You and I've talked about that. I think of myself relatively as an optimist. Now, let's just start with how the hell we're going to get rid of Donald Trump. Now, let's look at it. Did he get impeached? The answer is yes. Okay, he did. I said he would, and he did. The problem is the Senate, playing along strict party lines, chose not to punish him. All right. But he still goes down in the record book, and I know that doesn't count right now. He's still president. He'll get as an impeached. That's not something you want necessarily, to be in that small select group. Nixon avoided it by resigning, but there's a couple other people there. I think Bill and Clinton, Andrew Johnson. Okay, so we got that part. So we're rolling along. And let's get to the election, and then we'll go into what happens during this time. And I think what you were alluding to is the future, not just politically, but the future of all of this. So let's get to the future politically, okay? So now, how do we get rid of Donald Trump? Very simple. You vote him out of office. Now you say, whoa. I concede he has a lot of power. I concede he has the Russians, which just today the Republican led group said yes, they interfered. I mean, there's just anybody who denies that might as well say this. I deny that there's a sun. It's that established fact. The Russians were involved, so they're going to be involved. You've got the Republicans, and if I were a Republican, they're not running a bad game. All right, they're outnumbered. They're a white party in a country that is more and more every day becoming non-white, right? And they know this. There's a handful. Uh, you know, Clarence Thomas. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to get into those. I mean, but there are a
Right.
handful of minorities in there, but not many. Look at the rallies. Look at the Senate. They're white males for the most part, and the women who love them. That's really what it is. So, is it going to be tough? Yes, but here's why it's so simple. All the Democratic nominee has to do, and the presumptive nominee is Joe Biden. We can talk about that later if you want to. He because it can be a he now. Some of us, like myself, were kind of hoping it would be a she, but it's going to be a he. All he has to do is win Pennsylvania, win Michigan, and win Wisconsin. Correct?
Correct.
They are the three states that Hillary Clinton lost with a capital L. Now, we're not getting into blaming Mrs. Clinton. I mean, that's not the purpose now. We're not Republicans looking back, oh my God, her emails. Oh my. Screw that. What we are going to say is Joe Biden, if you look at him and if any kind of support, he is acknowledged to be Pennsylvania's third senator. I like his chances in Pennsylvania. Okay. He's always been known as being for the workers, right? Is he for the rich? Well, of course. I mean, that's something else we can talk about. But he's known with the workers. Well, there's Michigan, right? So now, what do you do? And we don't know who his vice president will be, but I'm not that concerned, assuming. Now, let's get into the things we are concerned about in the future. So, Brian, why don't you pick what's your biggest concern? And now we're opening it up because really I'm going to suggest to the people out there, and I'd be interested to hear their comments, that there's 3 or 4 viruses out there. There's obviously the COVID-19, which is deadly. There's at best an amoral, if not immoral, Republican Party out there. And there's Donald Trump, who to me is to human beings as the COVID is to the virus family. And on top of that, you have foreign influence in terms of Russia. And let's not forget our friends, China. So, with all that, so what virus do you want to start with, I guess, is what
Well, I'm going to, because I do like film and so do you. I'd like to basically, at a fundamental level, give you my basic feeling about this. I was
Okay.
watching The Plot Against America last night. I don't know if you saw episode 6.
I'm a show behind, so I did not
Okay.
watch last night.
But, and I don't want to spoil everything, but in the end, we see that Charles Lindbergh, who's the president of the United States, is off and they can't find him. And they presume that he's dead or whatever. And they say, okay, we've got to have an election. Walter Winchell is murdered. And you see all of these people of different colors, different religions going to the polls. And they're all smiling and they're happy. And they say, we're gonna get FDR again. And then you see behind the scenes somebody's pulling this voting machine out because it's broken, and then you see some guys grabbing the box and going into an open field and just burning all of the ballots. My greatest problem is not coronavirus. My greatest problem is that this party is basically going to become a fascist party. Maybe not exactly.
Are you sure you want to use the word become? I mean,
Well, it is. It
use
is.
the
No, you're
word
correct.
is. I'm fine with that. We don't have
But at
to
least,
have
but there's a difference. It's like my
Okay.
Russian friends who say, Brian, I hear you complaining about Trump all the time. We have lived under this for 70 years, and now you know how it's like. At least you have some opposition. In Russia, there is no opposition. We just have to take it because all of our governors are controlled by one man, and the courts can't be trusted. So what I'm saying is when you have this ipso facto takeover, you've got the courts, and you can see already with Gorsuch, he's just today there was something in the press, but I don't want to go into that. But I'm afraid with the courts, I'm afraid what the military actually will do, because I'm not so sure there's going to be like-minded people in the military, as you've said. I just don't trust basically the people with the guns, and these are your white conservatives. And there's more I'll say about that, but generally that is, David, that is what I am worried about the most, is a takeover in this country. And it sounds crazy, but
No, it doesn't, Brian. No, it doesn't. In these crazy times, nothing sounds crazy. Um, Things we wouldn't have had this discussion, a few years ago. And yes,
Absolutely
things sound
not.
crazy. So I'll tell you something I ran across this week, and then we'll backtrack a little bit. And I never gave this any thought, really.
Right.
Right. And a writer that I respect, very insightful. And this is, again, he's just predicting. We don't have crystal balls, that are accurate. But he was saying his view is that if Trump were to win, I think, first of all, he's right about this. It would be just, man, my dad used to use these saying, Katie bar the door. I don't even know what the hell that means, but it just you rush all over and do stuff, right? Which Trump would do. He would think that is the mandate, which in a way it would be, right? That is a mandate if you win a second term. Obama had one, it's kind of a mandate. The difference is, Trump has no no compunction about using a mandate that he doesn't have. Good Lord, if he thinks he has one.
Right.
So you do have that. And what this writer said was, if that does come to pass, so you're talking about change, he really believes that the United States will break into at least 3 countries, not immediately, but over a period and you're beginning to see that, okay? You look at the two, obviously it would be the 2 coasts, right?
Correct.
Now, how far down the East Coast it would extend, or how far north? Does Maine come along? They're pretty independent. I don't know what they would do, right? So let's just say it starts with Massachusetts.
Correct.
Works its way down, right?
Well, let's go through the states, if you don't mind. Let's specifically, we're talking, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts,
we're coming down. So
Connecticut, Rhode Island.
I'm going to say Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and then up for grabs, Maryland and Virginia.
Right.
Now, Virginia now has turned blue. It's where I live. It's really 2 divided states, very accurate. You have the northern part where I am. Ironically, the northern part is extremely liberal, and the southern part is extremely conservative. But right now, there are more liberal votes in Virginia to do that. Now, as you work down, who would join the South? So we forget. And then, of course, on the coast, even more solidified, there's been talk out in California for a long time. Now it's kind of joking talk. How's one state going to leave the Union? But now it's California, it's Oregon, and it's Washington.
Correct.
And again, there's been talk. Now, no country is always happy with its people, but there's also a lot of overlap there with Vancouver area, British Columbia. So maybe it would be, I don't know.
Right.
Now, will this be with guns? No, it will not be with guns. Okay. Can I say that with certainty? No. Again, everything I have to.
Well, you certainly can't say that you would feel, even in New Jersey, there are some conservatives who would take their guns out if this went that way.
Well, it all depends. Would they take their guns out, possibly, or would they say, I'm going to move to Montana where I can have even more guns? We don't know, right?
Right.
Come on, look at the crowds. They haven't been big. Maybe stupid isn't as big as we think it is. When I say the crowds, I'm talking about, the fucking idiots who came after nurses. Right. I mean, that's beyond the pale. I mean, that's not, that's old. If the Bible were true, God strike them dead on the spot, and we cheer God, right?
Right.
They are just bad people. And anybody out there that doesn't understand, if you back them, and you're my brother-in-law, you're a bad person. Okay, it's just simply that. So now that all hinges on the election. So I think
right,
two things are in play. No matter what we do. What happens with the virus and what happens with the elections? Oh my God, is that a brilliant insight? Well, it's the best we have. So we can speculate. My speculation is, can I be wrong? Yes. Okay. I have no problem talking about my record. 13 times I was wrong on Donald Trump's election. 11 times he made remarks from, I'll grab them by the pussy, that I just said, okay, tomorrow morning he'll be out. And he just got stronger. Because apparently a lot of men in America like to grab women by the pussy, or don't see anything wrong with it. And apparently a lot of women like to be grabbed by their pussy. I guess. What else can you say, right?
Right.
I think they're called Republican women. Republican men. I don't know. No. But so the idea of it is that, and then the last 2 times I would have bet money that he could not win the Republican nomination, and he did. And I would have bet the bank and everything I owned. And you say, why didn't you go to Vegas? Well, I'm not a gambler. But if they said you have to put everything up, I would have bet on Hillary Clinton. I would have been wrong. So obviously, I can be wrong.
And the
I'm
emoluments clause.
I'm going to get back to what I said earlier.
Right.
It's just 3 goddamn states. It's just 3 states. And I don't want to blame the media, because I'm still a part of that. I mean, I spent 10 years in it. I still write. I still do all these kinds of things. I'm involved. I did the museum. I mean, they're some of my best friends, people that I work with, trade with. But anyway, what does happen, I think, is they need stories. And it's not fake stories. It's just like sometimes, they get a call. The interesting thing is, will Georgia turn? The interesting story is, will New Jersey turn? It's not going anywhere. It's going to vote Democratic, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the possible states. Well, and then everybody gets, well, they need that. No, they don't. Joe, if you're listening tonight, I invite you to this show if you're not, and I'll be working for you. Even though you weren't my first choice, Joe, it was Elizabeth, but I'm 100% behind you now. You just have to win in those 3 states.
Right.
And not lose, anywhere you shouldn't lose, right?
Well, let's look at some, if I may kind of go deeply into this, Dave, because there are some states where Joe Biden might think he might be able to pull it off. For example, in Georgia, he thinks he might be able to, if he had Stacey Abrams as a running mate, or at least he gets the black vote out there, and maybe they can pull that off. I don't know. Do you go to Michigan with Governor Whitmer?
Whitmer, right? Who's just emerged as a figure.
And I don't know how that works, because you have the peninsula and how they vote. Oh. Where do you have your best bang for your buck to get to this point where you can still win?
Well, I think this is, and we mentioned, you and I mentioned this in our talks. There are elections where it doesn't matter who you have for vice president, right? And there are elections that do. In my lifetime, I think the most crucial choice for vice president, for the president to win, was John Kennedy taking on his arch enemy who he despised, Lyndon Johnson. Right. And together,
I agree.
They made a whole team. They did not like one another. Their camps did not like one another. They were personally different. Lyndon, the only thing they shared in common, which is interesting, a lot of people don't, Lyndon was also a big womanizer. They don't. So that, but I don't think they talked about the women that way. I was, there was some other power and that kind of stuff. So that works. Barack, he probably chose Joe for a reason, but I don't think it would have mattered. Barack ran on his own, right? I mean, you either wanted a black president and felt okay with that, or you didn't want a black president. One thing I will say on Barack before I get off of him, a lot of people believe, and it's hard to dispute, that part of Donald Trump's rise is the fact that a number of white people were upset that America actually went and elected a black president. Right. And I don't know how much that weighs into it, but it's certainly a factor. Right? So who does he take now? And that, I think you alluded to some of those things.
Does Harris help in any way? Because he already has California.
Everybody brings something to the table. Mm-hmm. All right, let's look at the prime candidates. Elizabeth Warren, tried and true. She brings a base, not as big as Bernie's base, right? But a base that's an appeasement kind of to the left part of the Democratic Party. And she does have, people laugh at that, but she does have a plan for everything. And I would ask people tonight to compare. Trump doesn't even have a plan tomorrow for a bowel movement. Right. Let alone.
He's too stupid.
It's just right. It's everything just. And he'll tell you that. I don't think. Well, that's clear. But what he means is I don't think about things. I just react. And he believes his reactions are better than people's planning. Sorry, Donald, wrong. But Elizabeth also brings, the age question, and she's been around. You look at Stacey Abrams, who you mentioned, a rising star, and the only thing, and she's probably of the named people the one I know the least. But my only qualm with Stacey might be, and she could certainly dispel that very quickly, is she's not really tested in the fires, right? Mm-hmm. She did a phenomenal job of getting close, but she didn't win. Now, it's not her fault. If you look at, you talk about a stacked deck. Okay, that Georgia election was what you think that was about. So you've got that. You look at this rising star Whitmer. You look at Klobuchar, out there, a Midwest woman. And I saved the name last. And I originally thought, like I said, I wanted Harris. I wanted Warren. But I didn't think she would win, which I don't mind backing. You backed the loser. No, I backed the candidate I thought was best. Okay, I'm not going to holler, say anything about that.
Hmm.
But I always thought a great ticket would be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I think it's but again, you know what? I don't think Joe's going to pick up the phone tomorrow and ask me what I think. And that's one of the problems that I have today with all of us. And I'm going to lump myself into this too. Oh, what? It's our opinions, damn it. It's not facts. You know who's going to, for every reporter out there, and I love you. I know how hard a job is. I did it for more than a decade. But all the stuff you write, I'll tell you when you're going to know whether you were right or not is when the last vote is counted that needs to be counted on election night, right? It's the same thing here. We can speculate. We don't know who Joe Biden's going to pick. We don't know who his team is. I know enough about politics to know that if he plans it well, he'll bring in what I would call some trial balloons, to see how people feel about them. I mean, I'm sure he has somebody in mind right now, but we don't know who that is.
Right. So let's look at this. You've mentioned these possible candidates. Let's take this into the future. So he chooses a candidate, whether it be Harris or Warren or
he's got a vice presidential candidate.
He chooses that candidate. It looks like it's the right choice, and it probably is the right choice.
Right.
But something just doesn't seem right with the election, and somehow it goes to the Supreme Court again, just like it did in 2000. And there, holy hell breaks loose, and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and this John Roberts, who really doesn't seem to have a backbone, they go for Trump, and then it's even worse because this is a possibility because 2 out of the last 4 elections has had the issue. So what does this play out in the way you're talking about, where you say, fuck this thing?
First of all, the easiest thing is a resounding victory. Okay, that's the easiest. Now let's look at Gore Bush, and I admire Al Gore. He didn't invent the internet, but I mean, Al Gore, think about this. Think how different America would be, anybody listening tonight. Think how different it would be if you had an environmental champion as president.
Right.
Okay. Much better America, probably a much better world. But Al Gore failed to do something that you have to do to be a winner. He didn't win his home state. Okay. He did not win Tennessee. His family was established there. I'm sure there are books written why he didn't. The bottom line is he didn't. So, what Joe, whether it's Joe, whoever it is, the best way is to clearly have it. Now, this is where you and I would probably part company, you being the darker and me seeing more light. The one light that I see in the Supreme Court, believe it or not, is John Roberts. And here's why I say that. Okay? You know whose Supreme Court it is? It's John Roberts' Supreme Court.
That's right.
So when he makes a decision, he has to believe in 2 or 3 things, right? One, hopefully he believes it's the right one, okay? Mm-hmm. His tendencies are conservative, don't get me wrong. However, his name goes on it forever, right?
Then where was he during the Mueller investigation?
What? I don't know how important that was. A lot of this stuff has been botched all over the place, right?
He reminded me of Judge Ito. He just, he was so worried about making a mistake.
Well, I think from what I've heard, and I've only heard, I've heard 4 of the Supreme Court justices speak in public, and I actually got to question a couple of them one time. But no, the idea is, I think Roberts is. I think 2 things you can say about him: he is conservative in his political views. And I think he's a conservative judge. What I mean by that is he's not blazing new trails, right? So, but again, I have to, you have to hang your hat on something. And I would think that and I think he would do this. He has to remember and go back in history and look at the decisions that later history said were bad. Mm-hmm. Dred Scott. I mean, we go on all this, and they're named by the Supreme Court justice, right? I mean, it's their court. So that's part of it. Again, how do you avoid that? Now, another thing, and I'm going to not powerful. I'm going to change this around. What is it? Shame on me, the old one. Shame on me. Shame me twice. Whatever. Well, any Democrat who naively believes that the Republicans aren't going to do everything they can to keep the vote total down and to keep Democrats, traditional Democrats, from going to the polls. They're naive. So how do you handle that? You have good attorneys there. You fight it on the ground before it can get to the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
So that's one thing you do. I've been involved with a lot of elections in terms of being a reporter, and they can be pretty brutal. And what's happened, Brian? The idea of fairness in elections, it was never there. Okay. We've spoken before. I just love this. I mean, people, oh, it was so civil. Okay. Now, just bear with me for a minute. Okay. I'm going to submit something that historically is kind of not radical, but I'm going to say that the real first presidential race was between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Somebody may say, oh, wait, whoa. George Washington could have been king, right? It wasn't an election. I mean, as such, the people actually talked about him being a king. They wanted someone wanted that, and then he won his second term, and then he left. So it's Adams. And if you go back, and I urge everyone to do this, go back and read what they were saying. Now, the interesting thing then is here's the difference, Brian. Two things: they didn't have social media. That's one, of course. The other was didn't say it about each other, but that somebody else said. And a lot of them used Latin names or different names, right? But you knew. And my favorite quote, it is a quote. Goes something like this. I'm going to get it somewhat wrong, but it was this. Jefferson's people, and of course, when I say it was Jefferson, I mean, these people didn't do anything that Jefferson didn't approve of, described John Adams something like this: an old, toothless, foul breath smelling, bald-headed hermaphrodite. Now you might thought, hermaphrodite, come on. So this idea, the first thing I want to do is dismiss this idea that this is new. Now, and it comes down to a very simple question. And if this doesn't work, here's one simple question. I'll make it very simple. And I ask it of every voter tonight. Who would you rather have as president today? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Because now Donald Trump has his crisis. And I love, he handled it well. Bullshit.
Right. Bullshit.
He handled it as abysmally as any human being could. And here's why. He's an habitual liar. Okay, that's number one. I challenge anybody to challenge me on that. I mean, all you need to do is follow the man for.
He has no foresight whatsoever.
Well, the lying thing is provable. I mean, that's just it. I mean, that's not even worth talking about. Well, if you're a habitual liar, you have no credibility, right? Why? And you need this now. You need a Cuomo. And Cuomo wasn't that popular. He just came out and said, look, this is the way it is. I'd love to tell you differently, basically, right? But this is what we have to do. Mm-hmm. And the people appreciate that. Not the partisans. I mean, they're going to say, whatever. All right. Now, why else don't you want Trump in this point? We don't know where his allegiance is. Do you? I think he has Russian ties. I don't think there's any question about that. Financial ties.
Well, there's a coincidence of once between Russia and Trump.
And they do have a bromance. Putin's using him, and Donald wants to be Putin. I mean, that's his idea of what a good ruler does.
He won't have to go to jail if he does it.
Well, right. Yeah, and of course we'll discuss that later. I mean, that's hanging out there. But that's it. So, and the other thing is he can't admit he made a mistake. Do you want that kind of leader? I don't. But above all of that, in this particular crisis, you have to make a decision if you're president. Do I trust my gut instincts or do I trust science? And I know what his supporters are going to say. Well, his gut instincts. I also know, look, you can't dispute science. Well, you can, okay? We got people who believe the earth is flat. Okay, so yeah, you can. But the idea of it is, and I know your big project, and you do very well at it, and you're excellent at it, it's the environment. Well, you know what, Brian? You're not out there alone. 97% of the world scientists back you.
If not more.
Well, I'm saying I'm being the old numbers. It doesn't matter. What do you want? You want 100? That doesn't happen, okay? And it's the same thing here. So I'm not it's funny. I don't like memes because I like people who say their own things. But you have to remember, a meme was once somebody saying its own thing, right? It only becomes you're not his or her thing when you start passing it on. And there was one today that said, "Oh no, please don't say this was surprise." You said, who thought this could happen? Well, just about every scientist who studied pandemics said it could. What they couldn't say is when it would happen. They said it will happen. They didn't say it will happen here, break out in Wuhan, and spread, and then we'll go from
We
there.
actually discussed that. I think a year and a half ago, maybe.
Oh
You
yeah,
said
well
you knew
that's
somebody,
the thing.
and
What's so interesting is Trump is so consistently bad that from day one, and I know you and I have discussed this. Look, again, I don't have a legal degree, but I study some things. And with the emoluments clause, which nobody knew about, I got to admit I wasn't that aware of it.
well, you
You
were
know,
aware enough to tell me that you thought that might be
well,
a
I know that.
possibility in him
I
out.
mean, I know, and I talked to the legal group that filed the suit. They had a person standing in federal court, and as soon as he finished his oath, they filed the suit that he was in violation of that. He is then, he is now. For anybody who doesn't understand it, it's basically if you're president of the United States, you can't have holdings that could put you in some kind of conflict.
Wasn't it
You
the
can't receive.
congressman from Texas who filed that suit initially? I think it
Well,
was.
I mean, there were a number.
Right.
Now, what Trump is very good at doing, intentionally or otherwise, is hell. That's not even the 171st worst thing he's done.
Right.
You know,
I
and
mean,
I,
it
I, I
wouldn't
will say
matter.
this.
He's done so many illegal or partially illegal things. It wouldn't even matter. We know he does that.
And the other thing that I think too, Brian, and I can't lose sight of this. So I'm reminding myself. Okay, let's make a nicer term. Okay, let's say you and I are talking about the Beatles, right? Let's just say we are for a moment. And what's the best Beatles record? I mean, and when we talk about it, if it's the album, you say Sergeant Pepper's, I say
Right.
Revolver. What? There's some person, but you come up with it. So I have to remember. But the also true. What's the worst, right? And I have to remember that to me, the worst thing Donald Trump did, and it's worse today than when he did it, given this outbreak, is he took little kids and put them in concentration camps.
Right.
Now, I don't give a fuck if Obama had them, right? I'm not interested in what Obama did. You know why I'm not? He's not president anymore. I'm not saying I'm not interested, right? But we all, he
So
did
what
it.
aboutism? That's the way they argue it. So two wrongs make a right.
That's childish.
Right.
Okay. Oh no, I might have taken it, but Brian took it 7 years ago.
Right.
Well, what's that mean? So right now, as far as I know, there are kids locked up, and we know that that's not good. How do we know that's not good? Take nursing homes and look what's happening there. Take prisons and look what's happening there. So anywhere you're confined right now,
Mm-hmm.
right, unless it's in your house, safe, you're at some danger. Now, somebody else, I certainly would argue if somebody else picked something else he did. So, that's kind of a long roundabout way of saying, but it really does come down to that. Look, Brian, I mean, it's this simple to me. This, you'll hear it all the time. You hear it all the time. I've heard it meant, no, this is the election of my lifetime. Okay. A couple of factors of that. I'm probably not going to be around for too many more. I hope to be around for some more, but at 68 years old. But I do have two grandchildren that I hope are around for a lot more. And if Donald Trump wins, this will be one kind of country. And if Joe Biden wins, it'll be a second kind of country.
Correct.
Now, I do fault people for their limited knowledge of certain things. I don't know all about the government. Okay, I don't. I don't think the government knows about the government. But there are certain things. The president is more than a cheerleader. That maybe is, and you alluded to it earlier. The president appoints the Supreme Court. And I would make an argument and feel relatively comfortable making it, that when it comes to American actions, the Supreme Court is more powerful than the Senate, Congress, or the president. They're the ultimate arbiters. And it was set up that way. But you got to remember, too, people, and I'm not trying to go, he's got all the knowledge. But you have to look back when they set up. Really, if you go back, I don't think the founding fathers, they were worried. They were worried about the president assuming too much power. They were worried actually about the House assuming too much power. They knew they would be in the Senate. But they really thought, naively, possibly, that whenever that happened, the Supreme Court would be there because it would be the law. and
And look where we are
and,
now.
and you might make an argument now that that the Supreme Court is as divided as the country.
It's political. And you know the Republicans are responsible for this because they've groomed these people now. Because they didn't want to make the mistake that Nixon made ever again. And that's it.
Well, I think that's true. Of course, again, and I'm not defending anyone. This is kind of my theory, and I'd be interested in you to comment on it, Brian. It's more like here. Okay, we're not getting into heavy metaphysics and physics here, but I'm gonna say that I think there's actually maybe uh, there is actually a reality. Okay, there's a thing that objectively is reality. Okay, the reality is whatever I'm living. Okay, that's a reality. I mean,
I
but that
exist.
comes down. Then it comes down to how you perceive it, right?
Right.
And what we have a number of ways of perceiving reality. I would submit to you, I would submit to you that our wives, Ronnie and Judy, see reality a little bit different than we do, by the fact that they're women and we're men.
Right.
Okay.
Perspective.
I would say the fact one of my best friends here in D.C. is Isaiah Huggins. He's an old man. He's a few months older than I am, and he's an African American. And I would presume that he or any student I ever taught would see the reality a little bit different because color enters into that. Sometimes it can be, but I think one of the biggest things right now that maybe didn't exist quite so much before is, and I don't like to use the term Republican Democrat. I mean, the term, yeah, I got, but I don't think that's really what it is. For me, anyway, it's liberal and conservative. There is no real Republican way to see the world.
Right.
And there is no real Democrat way to see the world. But there certainly is a liberal way to see the world. And there certainly is a conservative way to see the world. Now, if you're aware of that, then you have to admit that, there might be something wrong with my reality. So we need to sit down and talk. But we don't have that much anymore. We just press ahead. And I understand that. I used to be willing to debate with anyone. I enjoy debates. I used to tell my students, and I tell myself this too, that always seek out people who think differently than you do and ask them and talk to them. Because three good things can happen, and they're all good. One is you hear their position and you say, you know what? You don't have to tell them, although it's nice to tell. They may have a point. And you go back and you relook it, right? That's a good thing. The second thing is you don't need to go back and relook it because they convince you and you say, you know what? I was wrong. And Donald Trump is incapable of doing that. He can't admit he was wrong. But if that's part of the human condition. If you think you're not going to make any mistakes, then your reality is completely skewed. And then the last one, so you got, the last one is also very good. You hear it out, but you are convinced that they are batshit crazy, or whatever, and you stay. And that's one of the things I fault Trump for. He surrounds himself with pure ass kissers. Each one gets worse. I mean, who could be worse than Jeff Sessions? Well, he found someone, right? Mm-hmm. Let's use poor Jeff for a moment. Trump, I only appoint the best people. Well, Jeff comes in, and you know what? Jeff didn't kiss his ass either long enough or luscious enough, right? And he's out. Now, you talk about somebody who has any kind of sin. Trump is now working against the man that he said was the best man in America to be attorney general. He's actively working against him in the state of Alabama, right? And I think that's at the essence. And I would challenge you. Donald Trump is not a Republican. Let me repeat that. Donald Trump is not a Republican. Ted Cruz, as much as I don't like what he does, is a Republican. Why do I say that? He rose up to the Republican ranks, right? Show me anything Donald Trump has ever done before that indicated he supported one party over the other. And he didn't. What he did was he supported the same person he's always supported and will always support. It's Donald Trump. Now, believing that to be true, and I think it's obvious that it's true, then I don't have a problem saying that his followers, many of them, are following a cult. Okay? I mean, that's what a cult, Now, is it everybody? No. Look, you've got a number of people. You got Donald Trump. Trump can't be anything but Trump, right? But he didn't take over the White House. He got there. So who got him there? Enough American voters who bought into the King of Kong. So they have to share some blame, right? Then you get two kinds of powerful people in Washington. One Mitch McConnell, I don't think Mitch McConnell likes Donald Trump. I think he thinks he's a buffoon. But he uses Donald Trump, right, to advance his own
Absolutely.
agenda. And then you have another kind of politician that hitches their wagon to Trump. They think he's a buffoon, right? But they're going to ride with him. So there's a lot of blame to go around. But you know what? I don't have a problem saying that it falls on the Republican Party. No, I don't even say that so much, although it seems like I say it falls on anybody who backs Trump for any reason, including Donald Trump.
Before we go into some questions and comments, because we
Sure.
have had some, Dave.
Yeah, how come I don't get to see the comments?
You will. I can post them up there. It says unknown, but I can read off the names here. I actually have it on my phone, so this will come from Facebook, and I can check YouTube a little bit later. But I did want to just not get philosophical, but I do want to mention when you were talking about, different perspectives. I mean, if you're an African American, you're going to have some slightly different perspectives. So when somebody has a debate with you, obviously where they come from matters. And I get that. We all have that. There's always some nuance that's different. But I think one thing that fundamentally should tie us together is the idea of rationality and logic. I mean, I don't care what your perspective is.
Okay,
Right.
Swab.
No, but I understand. But I'm saying, I think the problem is, and again, this gets into like the determinism thing, but the perspective of these people that you abhor so much, it was, this thing was created years ago, and I think that Trump is basically the projection of what these people are, and they've coalesced and they've figured it out. Like, we got in, and now they're not that stupid to know that they don't have the numbers. And this is why I say they're going to be nefarious
I think we
things,
both agree on
which
that.
will lead to, again, I know all the things you've been saying. You've been saying this, you've gone through, and I'm not putting it down, because I understand where you're coming from, and I've heard this from 3 years from you, but all the different things that you say, okay, well, he does this, and sooner or later somebody's going to say, I should have had a V8. I'm going to go against Trump. But it's not
Hasn't
going.
happened.
It hasn't happened. I don't think.
I'm throwing this out to anyone who who hears this, who knows me and knows who I know. I'll certainly would love to be wrong on this, but I don't personally know any human being in my realm who was for Trump who left the fold. What I do see, and there's reasons for that, we won't go into them now, so that might be a good topic for another time, because I hate to talk about people's motivation. But I do see people who were lukewarm to Trump being more favorable to him now. And I think part of that is just, they're tired. Like, I've had people tell me, well, I'm tired of being called a racist. Well, I'm sorry. You may not be a racist, but your president is. So what does that make you?
Or maybe
right?
they are racist and they just don't want to admit it.
Well, that's it. You can't do that. Like, they'll throw back at me. Well, you own the the Antifa. Yeah, I do. Okay, I own the Antifa. They're on my side. I don't like what they do, but I'm willing to own it, right? If they'll own the gun-toting idiots. I mean, again, I guess it's my teacher thing, but I mean, I just hate when kids are abused at any level, at any age. And these fucking idiotic assholes are taking their kids out to these rallies. Not all of them, right? But enough. I have to show you tomorrow. I ran across a sign today that was actually posted where it says, "Bring your kids." So yeah, I mean, there's enough blame to go around. Right. And if you really want to blame, you can say the Clinton. I mean, but again, we keep falling back. What do we do now?
Right.
We do one of two things. We either forge ahead with Trump, and I'm 100% opposed to that, or we get rid of Trump.
Right.
They're the two options.
Okay, so here we have some comments. I'll give out the names here. It's just that I think this program.
Stormy Daniels didn't call in.
No, she's given up on you, unfortunately, Dave. But what I do want to say is perhaps we could have like a lightning round where you could answer some of these, or I could answer.
Yeah, and
quickly,
make sure we get
because
to all.
Okay,
I'm just going to say this, and one of the things, and this is not like pandering, it sort of is. But I know I go to a lot of talks in D.C., right? A lot. Well, not now, but I did. And, they had to cut off the questions because people wanted to talk too long. I mean, I'd take the rest of the show just answering questions if we have enough.
Now, there's some comments here and some thumbs up and things like that. But let's go to some of the...
I want a question. I want to talk
Okay,
question.
For example, yes, Rachel Mayhew.
It's
She
Mayhew, but that's okay.
Mayhew. Okay, I'm not familiar with Rachel. Thank you for offering your question comment here. It says, I know Trump doesn't read, but do you think Stephen King's book, The Dead Zone, is Trump's playbook? I haven't read Dead Zone, so
No,
I should read it.
that's funny. A lot of us, and I do know Ray and I go back a long way. And she's a math teacher. I didn't know math teachers read. My God, that's a wonderful thing. No, look, you can find in literature all kinds of things, right? And I want to pick up on that. Trump doesn't read. He takes pride in not reading.
Right.
He basically says, I've read 3 books and they're all the ones I wrote.
And you can distinguish that simply because he can't speak. As Christopher
Well,
Hitchens said, how well you.
but no. So there's one thing. He may be dyslexic. I don't know. Maybe his father beat him every time he picked up a book. I don't know. But the fact is, he's denying himself knowledge that he could use. So, yeah, I think it's funny. People are saying The Stand. Stephen King had to come out and say, no, this isn't as bad as The Stand. But he actually said something like this effect. No, this isn't The Stand, right? Which I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it's basically end of the world. Same thing. This Captain Trips virus goes out and kills everybody. And, it's kind of end time. But he said, Donald Trump's a villain worse than I could create, which I thought was kind of an interesting comment. So, no, Ray, it's not Carrie. It's not The Stand. It's not Salem's Lot. It is an eternal struggle, if you view it this way, between good and evil. And I know which side Donald's on.
Yeah, there was a video I posted concerning that recently. So if you're interested, it's on Divided We Stand. Now, Ronnie did have a question. My wife, Ronnie, had a question. And this is something we experienced.
I'm laughing, but here's what you have to say. One of the things I love about getting the Washington Post, and it really shows you how powerful Jeff Bezos is, he's the owner. And sometimes there'll be as many as 6 articles in the Washington Post where they have to say, in full disclosure, Jeff Bezos owns this kind of thing. So I'm glad that you owned up to that.
Okay, Ronnie, we and I experienced something this week, and I don't want to get into it, but
no, we don't need those details.
It's political. But anyway, she says, please talk about why Vietnam vets stand behind Trump. This makes no sense. Now, I know she means generally stands behind him. We've seen this.
Actually, thank you for that segue. Can everybody see this? Right? It's actually serves many purposes, but it's an American flag. It's a symbol. It's not a thing. Now, what people don't understand about symbols, they can mean many things, right? Of course, I fought. I mean, joking. I don't equate what I did with any person who went to any war, but a number of us fought for them to come home. Right? I mean, on the streets,
right.
None of us got shot. All right, well, I didn't. I got maced and some other things. But the idea of that is, and you know what? We both felt we were fighting for this. So I think a lot of times veterans do remember veterans, soldiers are trained to follow command. What happens if you don't follow command? Bad things. Who is the ultimate commander? The president. Now, Ronnie, I don't, the Pentagon doesn't call me over for briefings. I don't know why, because I could straighten them out in a minute, but they don't. But I do know a number of officers just from where I live. Actually, what did I say? I live I'm trying to think, it's 4.6 from the White House. No, I'm sorry, 4.2 from the White House, 1.2 for the Pentagon. That's it. So when they drop the bomb on the Pentagon, I won't see any of you anymore because I won't even see the flash. So I do get a chance to talk to them. And now I know you asked about Vietnam vets, okay? But I think the veterans we need to worry about more now are those who are now serving. And they are not happy with Donald Trump for the most part. The ones that are, the commanders that are the ones that are in bed with him, right? Again, just like politicians. But most of them see. And what I like about them, and I think this is a little bit different, maybe at this point, first of all, again, no reflection. In fact, it's a reverse reflection. Who went to Vietnam? Not college graduates, right? Not for the most part. Not me. I had a college deferment, right? And then the lottery came up, and I didn't have to go. Now, so when I say I'm not putting down their fighting ability. I'm not saying it, but they weren't there. Now the Army's a much different thing. They are among the intellectual elite, the new Army coming in. because it's smaller. It's more involved with science and stuff. So I think
it's a professional army. The same thing's happening in Russia. They have a draft there, but
right.
The core is this professional organization.
And I do like that question, Frank, because I'm kind of talking, and thinking at the same time. I also think with Vietnam veterans, and this is, I don't know, I do get the chance to talk to some of them from time to time, just as you run across them. I think they feel they were so poorly mistreated, and they were, by their own government. You don't fight a war, with the age-old question: is there civility? Is there justice? Is there goodness in war? And I'm kind of on the school there's not. You do everything to stop the war, right? You do. You do everything you can not to have it once you declare it. And I don't think America backed, the people, its own troops. So again, they're looking for somebody, and they have two options. Okay, I mean, there are many, but I'm gonna say two options. One would be Bruce Springsteen. He speaks a lot for vets. He's done a lot for vets, etc. Or you could make Donald Trump. Donald said, "I'm for the veterans." Right? Sounds good. Show me one thing he's done for the veterans. Just show it. I'm open to that.
Okay. It's the same thing.
So I think it's more maybe with them a generational thing. Look, it's the same thing, and I get in this argument all the time. You respect the office of the presidency. Bullshit. You respect the person that holds the office. There's no respect for. There should be no respect for the office. If you carry that logic, every German should have been for Hitler, right? He's your leader. No, that's what we call that? Powerful propaganda, or propaganda for the powerful. Mm-hmm. But there are people who buy into that. So I think that's part of it too. They don't want to criticize their leader.
Here are a few comments that we can just say yes or no. Again,
I never do that.
It's tough for you, Dave, but you're getting short. You used to give us a couple hours. Now you're going to 10 minutes, so we're okay. Okay, but that's all right, Dave. You're doing a great job. Okay, so Rachel says some people up there think that Harris would be the best Secretary of State.
Here's the problem. Okay, it's interesting, and I like that question. And it's not yes or no. There's just a real short answer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if I'm going to be a liberal, I think the Democrats have more liberals than conservatives, right? I mean, that's just obvious. I think the people that Biden has to pick from, I think one of the hardest things is assigning where they go, right? Kamala can go a lot of places, including the vice president.
Yeah, but look what happened to Eric Holder. Simply because he was African American, look what happened to him.
Well, look, I mean, you can't look. I understand.
I mean, you can't avoid it. I'm just saying, this is the way these Republicans are.
Maybe, okay.
Or conservatives, as you say.
Maybe it's time to everybody in that cabinet, right? Everyone of is either African American, Hispanic, female, gay, an immigrant, I don't know what, and just do the best country you can, right? We need a Muslim in there, definitely. These people that are attacked. I think to get to Rachel's point or question, I think it's hard to pick who would be the best vice president, but I think all of them, all the names that have been mentioned, could be great. As you know who I'd like to see? Elizabeth Warren in the most powerful position she'd get to bring them damn banks.
Yeah, she'd go after them.
Because they are terrified.
Go after them.
Terrified of that.
Right. I agree with you on that.
So, and
I know where she's coming from because she was a prosecutor. That somehow that might
she has
relate
a legal
to
mind,
it.
Yes. Right. I mean, they're all good.
Mm-hmm. Another comment, Anthony Davis is a big fan of the Reality Report and our new nice guy. He said Bernie was his choice. It was my choice originally. I know, Dave, you liked Bernie at some point in time.
In 2016.
Right. Ronnie, this is one, Ronnie and I are lockstep. Roberts should have stepped up during the Mueller investigation. He didn't. And I think he played games and did nothing. I don't trust the man, and that's that. I know how you feel.
I'm not saying you should. What I'm saying is, how do I do this? Okay. I do a lot of times because students sometimes struggle to understand, and I do too. Simple comments. Okay. So I'm going to do a hypothetical that I don't think will happen. But after this, Judy opens. I'm down here, closed bedroom, and she's out there watching TV. And she comes in, and she says to me, "I'm leaving you. I'm done." Right.
Right.
There were 2 points. She was with me and she wasn't. Now, do I agonize over that, or do I say I move on? And I mean, you do have a little grieving period. I don't mean that, or death or whatever. But I think in this case, going back, and the Mueller report is what the Mueller report was. Okay. You can go all the way back. Would different people have done things differently? Would people have focused so much on the emails? Uh, the press. That's I mean, there are two places I really feel confident about speaking are journalism and education. I feel
Mm-hmm.
I'm relatively schooled in both of those. Journalism, the basic idea was balance and fairness. And what's happened is that's gone. No, it's being torn away, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was one of the last throes of, well, we got to find something, right? So the press overplayed Hillary's emails. They over Donald Trump. They overplayed Donald Trump. You know why they played so much to Donald Trump? They'll tell you. They loved. He is a headline maker. He's always been a headline maker. The president of CBS, actually, you can look it up. He's going to say, I don't know that Donald Trump will be good for the country, but he'll be good for CBS, and it proved it right. So when you go back and look at these things, I mean, I think it's like, okay, you got time later. It's like with the virus now. We can go back and assign blame later where it came from. Right now, we got to figure out what to do right now. Same thing with this.
Right.
Mueller report,
Mm-hmm.
any of that stuff over here. What do we do now?
And we have a lot of nows coming up, Dave. Who knows what comes up
Well,
on
of
there,
course.
right?
But Brian, that's nothing new. I mean, it is new and it's not new.
I
Okay?
mean, I
You
didn't
want to
go
ask me or
into this
not, but I'll say
tonight.
this real quickly to anybody.
We
All
didn't go
this
into
stuff comes
this.
back to one thing: social media.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the bad thing. Oh, it's great. I mean, it's really good that we have it now. Could you imagine? You know, I mean, I can. Okay, I'll use one personal situation. I'm supposed to be in Australia right now with four of the six people I love. And yes, that does mean I love myself, okay? My wife and I. And we're not there. Well, we aren't there physically, but we're a FaceTime, a Skype, a Zoom away. So, so that is there. And that's the good side of it. The bad side of it is a syphilitic, brain dead moron can propose a theory on there, and that can carry equal weight to the most brilliant man alive today, whoever that is. And no, I don't think it's me, but I'm just saying. So that it's back and forth. That is a difference when we talk about this.
Right.
Go
And
ahead.
by the way, if I may add a couple of things. Number one, Scott Morrison, let's just say he's not much better than Trump. So Australia's, I'm not so sure it'd be much different
I'm
over
not
there.
saying that.
No, I
What I'm saying
understand.
is
You would
I'm
rather
not.
be
But see,
right.
there you are again. Okay, not you. I'm just we
Right.
all do. Who really cares? Okay, in the relative term of things, who really cares who's good or bad right now? Americans should be focused on one thing. Afterwards, yes, we have to care about the world. I mention this all the time. I love this kind of comment. A redneck, and yes, he was a redneck. That's not a bad word. That's describing it. Basically said something like this: "You mean some chink?" And he used that word. I thought it was kind of a defunct word, but some chink in China ate a bat, and I'm going to get the virus.
Right.
Well, yes, that's true. We are that one world. I realize that part of it, but right now, you have to really worry about America, not the way Trump does, not America first, but you have to ask yourself, who is the best person when that election day comes to get us out of the mess, because we're still going to be there. It's not going away. And any other messes that come, and get us back to some semblance of normalcy. And I'd like to suggest at one point, even though it's more your area than mine, I'd like to talk about that sometime about I'm gonna say it tonight as a tease. We'll never go back to the way it was. Never, never, ever, ever. There are moments when that happens. Sometimes they're a single moment. 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
9/10 was one day. 9/11 a new world. Okay? And I'm going to say 2019 was the last of an age. And 2024 is going to be something different.
Right.
Now, but that's for another day. Go ahead.
Right. Okay, we do have a few more comments here. Actually, we have a lot more comments, but Ryan Velez, chess player, I believe, out of Michigan, says, "Hello, everybody. I'm proud to watch a stream that would be banned in Russia." And that would be correct. This type of stream would be banned in Russia if we were attacking the Russian government. Absolutely. Agreed?
And we all have to keep that, Brian. We have to keep that in mind.
Perspective.
Okay? As
right.
now, I'm gonna put a caveat to that,
Mm-hmm.
and I ask people to listen. If Donald Trump had his way, being Donald Trump, with no interference, would Brian and I be having this conversation? Just mull it over in your heads and think. I know how I feel. Go ahead. What's next, Brian?
Okay, so Ryan added, he says, this is just a quote.
Right.
I'm not racist. I just support the racist policies, the GOP. And that's essentially what you were saying. You have these individuals say, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Okay. Let me again. Sometimes I try to simplify things because I don't really have a complex mind. I wish I did, but I don't. So a lot of times I fall back on sayings my mother and father gave me. I've said it before. I attribute, wherever you are. I don't think. Well, if there were a heaven and hell, I know where they'd both be, and they wouldn't be in the same place. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think there is a heaven and a hell, as the Bible or as religious people claim. But here's the thing: they said a lot of sayings, and my dad said one. It actually came after this incident. Brian, you're aware of the deli. There's a deli on Old Deerfield Pike.
Yes, indeed.
It was a long time ago, and it was owned by this guy, and he couldn't see real well, right? And somebody came in with a comb as a gun, and he shot him dead, thinking it was, and they found out it was a comb, but, and he got off because, he really thought his life was in danger. But in the car were two other kids who didn't know anything about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were with him. And my dad used that as an example. He said, "You are who you hang with." And I think that's very important for people to understand. I love this. Well, I don't like what Trump says. Then you shouldn't hang with him. Well, I don't like everything he does. Well, it means you like enough. And there was a great thing circulating earlier. If you, and I'm just going to do a couple hits. If you support Donald Trump, you may not be a racist, but it's not a deal breaker. If you support Donald Trump, you may not be a xenophobe, but that's not a deal breaker. And it went on. If you support, et cetera, et cetera. And that's basically true. And we've talked about that before, and that's for another show. So many Republicans, I think, and that is a difference between Republicans and Democrats, even though I like to phrase it conservatives enough. So many Republicans are what I call one issue, and we'll talk about that later. But basically, what they say is, I'll forgive anything else if you are for guns, or I'll forgive anything else if you are against abortion. So, yeah.
Okay. Ryan adds, do you think the U.S. citizens are going to learn lessons from COVID-19 that will benefit society, or will they stick to the lessons that benefit themselves? I'm very pessimistic about that, Ryan. As usual, it's the same thing. We could talk about climate change. We could talk about the Supreme Court. Whatever it is, I'm very, very pessimistic, mainly because I think some people just in general, I mean, Dave might agree with me with this, that some people, whether they're liberal or conservative, they're so in the moment, like a student in our classes, they don't have time to think about such things. We think about it, and it doesn't make us better. It just makes us a little more rational, perhaps, or more worldly. So, no, I'd say until we get our educational act together, or just in general understanding news and trying to get, to tell the difference between propaganda and actual news. I mean, I know the difference between Fox News and Reuters or the AP, but a kid wouldn't. And I think the average American really doesn't know that. And again, I talk to Russians, and it's the same exact thing. They say every Russian watches Channel 1, which is their Fox News, except they have 24 Fox channels. And there are people that go hook, line, and sinker. So I'm very pessimistic about that. Dave, what do you say?
Okay. I kind of join you in your pessimism. Of course, I always have the little optimistic spin.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go with the my thoughts about this. Most people think about the past and the immediate present. Okay. And they don't really consider the future. That's where really great thinkers come in. They're able to look at the past and learn from it and realize what's good and bad about the future, but then project in. Having said that, to make major changes, okay, let's say a lesson. Let's assume that I just came here from a planet, the planet I think you came from, Uranus, and I just arrived here and I'm looking at these people and say, God, America's going to know now that they need some kind of health care that doesn't depend on it. Think about the lunacy of this, people. Think about it for a moment. Most Americans' health care is tied up in their employment. So when you lose your job, what do you lose? Your health care. We're the only civilized, and no, we're the only industrialized civilization that doesn't have it. So there's a lesson we should learn. Secondly, if we don't learn that a person like Donald Trump And listen, I'll probably not get this 100% accurate, but it's close enough to dance. He stood in front of the American people and said, "These scientists around me now, they're amazed with how much I get. I don't have a." Yeah, all right. You want a lunatic leading it, or you want science? We should look at that. Now, you want to get into world things? Yeah, there shouldn't be wet markets, and that's interesting. And my thinking's evolving on that. Not evolving on wet markets; they should be done. But how responsible is that experimental clinic in Wuhan? I think there's indications now that they were directly involved in this. Not a Chinese, an accident. There's your Stephen King thing. Okay, an accident. So yeah, I'd like to say this. I also think you have to look at history. What have we learned? The opportunities are always there. And I think, Brian, you touched on an important thing. And it's an area that you and I are expert in, somewhat, just from the number of years there. Education. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't fault any teacher in America. They're among the hardest working people. I applaud everyone, whether they're a bus driver, a secretary, even though I had pitch battles with administrators. I thought many of them had lobotomies. But they get up and fight the American battle every day. They fight ignorance every single day. And they are, to the educational world, what these nurses and doctors and orderlies are, right? They fight it. But it's bigger than them. Mm. And I don't know that America improves until we find some way to deal with economic inequality. We find some way to have to agree that science, is important. Okay. Again, this sounds so sacrilegious, but fuck it, I don't care. Go outside right now. If you believe in a God, ask him to make the sun come out. Unless you're in Australia, where is that? Yeah, I'm not saying God, but I'm just saying, when it comes down to us on our science, you got to listen to some scientists.
Right.
And you've seen those signs, God willing, God will take care of it. Okay, whatever. So, no, right?
But how, Dave, I wanted to just on exactly what you're talking about. This brings up a very interesting point. And
as long as you got everybody's.
No, I don't want to have us hang on forever on this, but I think it's important to show this because, you know who Bill Nye is, and you know who Tucker Carlson. Yeah, the science guy. So I would like to show this video, and I want this is what exasperated Ronnie so much. She must have had a heart attack, and you've probably seen this yourself. But I'd like for people to check this out because the
question is, it's not 42 minutes, is it?
No, it's around 4 or 5 minutes. But
I say cut,
it's not so much Bill Nye, right? But it's not so much Bill Nye. I want you to watch Tucker Carlson and understand that all these things we're trying to do. It's just undone.
Do you mind if I just close my eyes and listen to Tucker?
You're going to have to.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is somewhat recent. Okay. So let's play it.
Human nature. So we in the science community are looking for an explanation why climate change deniers or extreme skeptics do not accept the overwhelming scientific evidence for climate change. And the most reasonable explanation is you have a worldview, and then you have evidence, and the evidence disagrees with your worldview, so you deny the evidence, and then along with that, you deny the authorities that are providing the evidence. Now, if you have a better hypothesis for why climate deniers deny the overwhelming scientific evidence, bring it on. It's not a delusion. It's just like the fox and the grapes.
Well,
he can't reach the grapes, so he says the grapes are no good.
Look, people do come to every debate with preconceptions, and you're right about that, of course. But the essence of science is extreme skepticism. We always ought to be asking ourselves, is my hypothesis true?
I'm a member of both organizations, Mr. Carlson, and this is climate change denial is denial. The evidence is overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. I love you as a person more than life itself.
I know, it's not that easy. There we go. All right.
Here's the thing, okay? What I got out of that, obviously, my scoring, Bill Nye gets a 10, and Tucker Carlson, whatever the hell his name is.
Tucker Fredrickson.
Gets detention, okay? Whatever, right? Okay. Now, having said that, what I think we can learn from that is very simple. What Mr. Carlson, is that his last name?
Yes.
Tucker Carlson.
Mr.
Carlson made a very interesting point there. And the smart right, and there are smart conservatives. They're not all dumb.
Well, he's not in this group. Unless he's being slick.
He's good at what he does. He provides good TV. Notice what he did. there is a premise, if you only got sixth grade science, that science should always be skeptics. And they are, in this sense. They're always open to being disproven, right? Unlike the President of the United States or Mr. Carlson. But they accept the science until it is disproven, right? And that's what, no, Donald Trump, it doesn't feel good in my gut. Well, first of all, Donald, you have a good gut. I mean, you have a big gut, so there's a lot of room for that shit. But, I think that's basically what it is. All these arguments. The second thing is, and we're guilty of it too, Brian, in this sense, you and I, we're not experts, but we're having fun, okay? But we're also not making millions of dollars. And I don't know that we're influencing anybody. All the names you read are people that I think agree with us. I want to get some people on there. So I want to give a shout out to some of my former students that disagree with me on Facebook. Get your butts on here, and we'll do it. My point is, all this stuff is nice. But the basic idea is Bill Nye speaks for science. Tucker Carlson speaks for ratings. Who do you believe? I go with Bill.
Oh, and that's obvious. But my problem is something, again, perhaps I use this too much, more fundamental, that, this obviously is a tool for the Republican Party, this network, just as Channel 1 in Russia is a tool for Putin. Okay. And you can't get ahead because all he has to keep saying is, well, scientists must accept you can be skeptical. So, yeah, you could be skeptical about gravity.
Do you know what the average age is of a Fox viewer? I'll tell you, they're the prime age to die from coronavirus, okay? They're old for the most part. I'm old, right?
Right, but how do we get to the young people you're just talking about, these people on Facebook who actually go against you and against me?
First of all, from what I've seen, they're in a minority. That's number one.
That's true. I think most of the young people are not.
I always told my students, whether it's Rich Bodine, Eric Elwell, Neil Over. Oh, I'm naming names.
Oh, my God.
No, I respect that. And I know that sounds weird, but I do respect it. Because one of the things, I never did politics. I love when people don't know me. They mean, oh, my God, you're in the classroom? I defy anyone to go back on a day when I said, vote Democrat, vote Republican, whatever. Because I don't believe teachers should do that. But what I do believe teachers should do is two things. Make people think, right? And then the second thing is, if you believe in something, speak out on it. So I really don't have I don't really have a problem. I commend that. Okay. I worry more about, oh my God, Mr. Price said, that we should, no, so I do commend him. Do I feel that I didn't teach them real well? Well, maybe no, not that. But so I don't blame them. Well, I mean, I blame, Donald Trump. There's no Father forgive me, for I know not what I do there. Mitch McConnell, there's no Father forgive me. There's no I'm learning. There's no they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. So I have a little bit different feeling toward the young than I do. But if you're asking me, where the country is going, it's going liberal. Not because I'm on that side. Right? There are people there are people afraid of on the Democratic side. They're afraid it's too liberal. They think they look at AOC or the four congresswomen who I think are doing a marvelous job in this respect. They're raising questions. They're doing exactly.
I think in terms of numbers, you're right, Dave. Yes, the continuum says okay, the young people are more liberal than ever before in a way, and they're going in that direction. However,
they're more tolerant, Brian. And here's what I mean. Look. I'll use myself as an example. I had to learn or unlearn bad habits about gay Americans. Okay? I mean, we were raised differently. I had to unlearn bad habits about black people. I came from a family from the South on my one side. Thank God for my mother's side. And it's hard to do that. But now you look and you see how many interracial children there, and look,
absolutely.
High school. Do you really see? I mean, and it's now again. I see it down here all the time. So it's not a thing of the poor. You can just do this British. Well, that's just because a Spanish girl goes with a black gentleman. Whatever.
Right.
No, down here, So that's a very positive thing, the tolerance and acceptance. And with that is a more liberal attitude. The other thing that I think is going to be a huge difference, and I can't prove it yet, but I think it's this generation of kids grew up fearful to go to what should have been the safest place in their lives.
School.
And that was school. And it doesn't matter. My own grandchildren, would come home and they would talk about, it doesn't matter. So that's their Vietnam, right? The difference is not everybody went to Vietnam.
Right. I'm saying, Dave, though, that what you're saying is absolutely true. I agree with you. And the numbers are definitely on your side, on our side, because we both think the same in this sense. But again, you're looking at a desperate party, and they've already done desperate things. You've said yourself that the Supreme Court, this could go the wrong way for 50 years. Look how they've gerrymandered.
However, young people also have a tendency not to be entrenched, right? They're not so much burdened. They see the world, later they see more shades of gray, but initially they say black and white. If they can stay that way, if they really feel that a 5-4 court, if it were maintained that way, we're wrong. Why not? And a Democratic president's in there, and a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate. Why not make it 17 and add all the other judges so it becomes... And, unfortunately, that's the way it is, okay? It is a war. It's an ideology.
Right, and I'm going to go back 180 degrees, or full circle, I should say. Full circle to what I said at the beginning of the show when I was watching The Plot Against America. In a way, it's analogous to you. I saw these people of all different colors going to the ballot box, and there are these three guys taking thousands of ballots. They go out into the marshlands of northern New Jersey somewhere, and they burn them all up.
Okay, I got that. But the question is, we don't know that because you spoil the ending for me.
And you know yourself that could happen.
Look, don't worry. Okay. But what I'm saying is, the question becomes, that's been done for a long time. In this imaginary world, did FDR win? Right? We don't know that, right?
We don't know that yet. Right.
No. So what I'm saying is, they're going to throw, look, they are like a crazed, wounded dog.
Right.
Fighting for survival. And if I were a Republican, I would feel that way, I'm sure. Because there are people, as strongly as I hold my liberal beliefs, there are people, I think they're morally bankrupt sometimes. I think they're certainly ethically bankrupt. I think they're intellectually bankrupt. But that's my thoughts, right? They think the same thing of me. But what I am saying is that feel very strongly. And if you do, you want your side victorious because, it's like the old Bob Dylan song, With God on Our Side. I love that song. Everybody thinks they have God on their side, right? And that's a metaphor for if you're right? Brian, it's been great talking.
Right.
I could go forever. You could go forever. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments?
Just a few comments here. We'll just Joey says hello. Paul's there too.
Hey, Joey, hey Paul. I know them.
Again, Ryan Velez, thanks again for all your comments from Kentucky. Ryan's actually from Kentucky. I think I said Michigan, but Ryan, he had a great governor there.
I point that out to anybody critiquing this show. If you think this is easy, it's not. I love to talk.
Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of different guests.
And Brian's doing two things. He's moderating, three things: moderating, talking, and the technological assistant. I've asked him to train Ronnie to do it, but he doesn't trust Ronnie enough to do it.
I thank you.
So
Paul,
what I'm saying, it's fun, but you're going to see
doing.
glitches. I'm going, but this is what, and I do want to point this out because I think it's interesting. Every time there's something bad, something good, or something different comes out of it. I think one of the most fascinating things for me as someone who's loved music all their lives, played it, written about it, is you're seeing these home concerts, and you're seeing that Michael McDonald can't hit every note. And you're saying, and you're seeing it, you're seeing what makeup does or doesn't do. And I'm kind of appreciative of that. Just like we're doing this, I'm not an actor. I'm not Tucker Carlson. He's far better. Just Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity. I think they're much better at it as evil people. But the idea of it is, they're polished, and this is not. So I think that's a great thing. So when you said Michigan, Kentucky, it doesn't bother me. But
And we
I'm
have
sure
some
there's somebody who picked your
members
argument
from
apart.
Australia,
he said
too.
Michigan when Ryan lives in Kentucky. Yeah, big whoop.
Okay. But we do have some people from around the globe that eventually will get here. We have a
No.
couple from
Well, it's
Australia.
the first
so-
show, Brian.
Right. So anyway, Dave, thank you very much, and we'll do
Thank
this
you
again
for
on
having me.
Tuesday if we can. Tuesday.
I do think we should have a vote, and I think the most important thing is who is more photogenic. I've always thought. I mean, no, wait a minute. That's reality TV. That's what Donald Trump says. Forget that. I do want you, anybody, a couple of things that I would suggest to the viewers tonight. Watch again, of course. But what I really would like to do is, and people are hesitant to do that, but I'd love to see them suggest a show that they would like. Because one of the things, and Brian, we didn't dwell on a lot, we don't practice this. We don't even talk about it. I mean, we talk about it, but we talk about it like 5 minutes before we go on the air.
Right.
And the arrangement was, here's what the arrangement was. Anyway, I'd be involved in this. I said to Brian, I don't want to plan it out. I don't want to think. We'll go off the top of our head because I think sometimes some of your best thoughts come there. I'm not saying the ones you act on.
Right.
Now, if I was to, I'd go back and look at this and say, what did I say that was right? What did I say was wrong? Not judging a performance. So certainly, I mean, if we knew we can't shift in the middle of a show, we could, but we're not. But I mean, if somebody does it, send it to Brian. Next time, I'm going to plug a lot more of my stuff. Can I point up here? No, I'm not doing that tonight.
Right.
But that's my book. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I think that was something I'd really like to see. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the shout outs. But I really, I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm not doing it very well or articulately, is this. It's not important what Brian and I want to talk about as much as it is we want to talk about what you want to know or what you're concerned about. So please send those things in. I'd send it to me because Brian, if he doesn't like a topic, he'll just bury it.
Okay.
But I guarantee I'll get to your topic.
All right.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Good night, Dave. I appreciate you coming on.
And he's not going to leave me alone. He's going to take this off. He'll be talking to me till 3 a.m. I know him. Hell.